Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Paytm Money Talk. And today's topic for discussion is investing on India's transportation and logistic fund. It's a very interesting thematic discussion. Of course, lots of things to learn from this topic. As we know that India is growing very fast, it's one of the brightest spot in the world economy today. But when it comes to ownership of vehicles, India is one of the poorest. Per four wheelers around 40 ownership in 1000 population, and when it comes to two wheelers, it's again in South Asia, our ownership is around 110 two wheelers against 260 for South Asian average. Now, with increase in economic development and increasing popularity of e-commerce, the transportation and logistics sector is undergoing a massive transformation. So yes, this discussion is all about how you can capitalize on this transformation, on this huge development that's taking place. My name is Neeraj Gogoi, and I'm a host for the show. And this show is powered by Paytm Money. Before I start, let me tell you what the Paytm Money Talk is all about. Paytm Money is such a platform where we try to get new ideas, new strategies, and new way of investing. We constantly keep on updating our viewers about the new developments, new investment ideas. So obviously, if you are somebody who is willing to improve your investing skill consistently, this show is definitely for you. Again, as I said, today's topic is all about transportation and logistics. So guest today is Miss Medha Budhia. She is from Aditya Birla AMC, and she has got around 15 years experience in the market, and she is into business development and product development. She is by qualification MBA and BSc in marketing, and gained all-round experience and knowledge by navigating challenging challenges in different sales channels like institutional retail. And Meda is extremely, she has extensively worked on conceptualizing business growth strategies. So it's a great pleasure to have Meda today in our show. Meda, welcome onto the stage.
Thank you so much, Neeraj, and thank you for having me. And a warm, a good evening to all the viewers. I'm happy to be
Great.
on the show.
Yes. Meda, the first part of our discussion is going to be, market lenses. So we're going to talk about how the market, it's a very exciting time when our economy was looking almost so good, so bright, one of the brightest spot in the world economy. The rest of the world was suffering from or on the verge of getting into recession. Ours was, quite away from that. We have got geopolitics. Last year, we had a Russia-Ukraine war, and suddenly this Israel and Palestine war have started, and every chance that this war might escalate into a big thing. So in this context, in this backdrop, how do you think the market looks like, the economy, Indian economy looks like, challenges? So what's your take on that, Meda?
Sure. Thank you, Neeraj, for that question. And actually, it's a I'm happy to start with saying the way you just mentioned that India is definitely a bright spot in the
Hmm.
global map, on the global map. And the reasons for it is multiple. Of course, India is one of the fastest growing economy, where multiple developed nations in the world are going through a risk of recession and slowdown. And there have been, like, we've been in the backdrop of wars, Russia Ukraine war, and currently there's another war that is on. So there is definitely a lot of volatility globally. Within that, and also in the backdrop of COVID, where across the globe again, multiple developed nations have gone through significant crisis, and they've faced it in a very
Mhm.
severe way, leading them to sort of pumping a lot of stimulus into their economies, which had to some extent artificially taken up the asset prices as well, pumped in a lot of liquidity in the economies. And in that backdrop, we have had an unprecedented inflationary cycle that we saw in countries like US, Europe, UK. All of that has been an outcome and spillover of that. Amidst all of this, happy to share, and which is evident, that India has been prudent in terms of the quantum of stimulus that was announced, the way our government managed the economy way back in 2020. And the outcome of that is visible even now, that our growth rates remain relatively unimpacted. We are still, quoting upwards of 6% sort of, GDP growth number. Our inflation numbers have really been, much in control within the desired band of RBI, which is, 2 to 6% sort of a band that RBI has, targeted for itself. So apart from a few instances where, we have breached that 6% mark, we are largely within that. So our inflation numbers are in control. The third most important thing is that despite so much, volatility and, geopolitical issues that we have been hearing, and if we go back, a decade back, and we look at how capital markets would usually react to, events like this, I think our markets have matured significantly, right? It would, there was a common saying that, US or UK or a developed nation sneezes and, India gets fever. So I think we've gone past that. Our macro
Mhm.
stability has certainly, uh, progressed significantly, which is evident in our, sort of the way our growth and inflation numbers remain stable. Even our, balance of payments, our current account deficit, despite crude oil, sort of moving in a wide range and reaching once again all-time highs in the recent past, and we being a crude importing economy largely. So our balance of payments takes a major hit, but despite that, we've been able to manage our import cover also decently. So all of this put together, and the way our markets have also reacted, and in fact, the other very important trend that we see, that our lower reliance on foreign money, FII
Mhm.
money, and more and more domestic participation in our capital markets have kept us in good stead. And that is even evident in the recent correction phase that we have seen after the war started, basically, and markets went through some bit. So I think domestic flows have kept us also in good stead, and the confidence of domestic investors, retail investors, has gone up massively. Their investor behavior has also changed, as is
Yes.
evident, from the SIP numbers that we see month on month. And most importantly, India continues to be an attractive destination to attract foreign capital as well as FII money. So
Mhm.
India is, one of the, and we constantly have been reading about how the weightage of India in various emerging market indices is, India is like now being seen as an overweight as compared to other emerging market peers. So net, all of these things put together, these are big positives for India. And it definitely talks about how the perception, the way India is being perceived globally as an investment destination, as a prominent economy, growing economy, is just growing significantly.
Yes. In fact, Medha, we have seen much lesser volatility now compared to what it was 10, 15 years back. Because I think I think that AIMS is mutual funds. They have done a tremendous job in educating our investors. Now, our investors, retail investors, are much more matured. They know how what is investment, as you said, the behavior. The investment behavior have really undergone a huge change positively, right? So
Absolutely, absolutely.
absolutely. So now, question is, of course, we are going to get into transportation and logistics, but at the same time, I would like to ask my viewers, like, if you have got any questions, please feel free. Don't hesitate. Write your question in the chat box, and I would like to pose this question to Medha, and she would love to answer it. Second question is, Medha. Now, one of the interesting theme to invest in the transportation is logistic, a theme that's growing very fast with the growing Indian economy, right? Do you think this theme, transportation and logistic, will be a key driving factor in the coming years?
Absolutely, Neeraj. So, transport and logistics is like the backbone of the Indian economy.
Mhm.
And in my view, if India has to become a 5 trillion and a
Mm,
10 trillion economy, say in the next 3 to 7 years, respectively,
mm,
you know, then one of the legs of this growth will definitely be transport and logistics. You
correct.
know, Indian automobile industry contributes today around 7% to our country's GDP. And
Mhm.
this theme is actually has its linkage and deep utility both from retail or individual side as well as from an industrial standpoint. And let
Mhm.
me elaborate through some examples on why I say
Mm,
that. The average per capita GDP of India is just about 2200 US dollars average, right? And it's growing.
mm,
And beyond this level, where, till this level, basically the expenditure towards staples is largely taken care of. And beyond this level,
mm,
as the per capita GDP, or commonly understood as the average income of an individual grows, then you know uh, individuals start spending the incremental money more on discretionary items. So as we commonly say that if individuals usually prioritize their spending items, it starts with
mm,
roti, kapda, makan. Now in today's, and then actually it moves to possibly gadi. But
mm.
in today's parlance, I think that gadi comes before makan also. So
Yes,
if roti kapda is taken care of, then I think personal
Gary is the next.
mobility or automobile is the next big discretionary spending that has to happen. And as you rightly mentioned, Neeraj, yourself, that the penetration levels where two wheelers or four wheelers is concerned is absolutely low in India. Right
Mm,
now, I'm sorry, out of every 1,000 people in our population, only 30 own a four wheeler. If we talk about two wheelers, the penetration levels are at about 12%, where our even our Asian peers, like say a Vietnam, would be at about 30%, Thailand at about
exactly.
25%, right?
Mm,
And if you
mhm,
compare in terms of
mhm,
the size of the country, the population, the numbers just don't, fall through together. So that is where, one of the key trends that's going to drive this segment is going to be, low penetration. Added to that, of course, affordability is the big piece. Now,
mhm.
just again a common, so if India's GDP growth rate is say about 6 to 6.5%, let's take a 6.5, added to that 5.5% of inflation. So nominal GDP growth rate of about 12%, expecting that the per capita GDP also grows at a similar pace. And if you go back to data and see, the average selling price of vehicles is
Mm,
actually just growing at a pace of about 5 to 5.5%. So, which brings us to the point that affordability is growing at a significantly faster pace for an average
mm,
Indian as compared to the price at which the price of vehicles that are growing. And hence, it makes a stronger case for personal ownership of personal vehicles. And again, linking it to a very common behavior, that the way India is growing, the way urbanization is growing in India, uh, India has a young population, right, where the median age is just about 28 years. So the aspiration levels, the awareness levels are significantly high. So in India, if all of this is put together, urbanization is a trend, then mobility is a natural outcome of that. Even within the country, right? People want to move across cities. People from tier three, tier two cities, are coming to work in metros or in bigger towns. So that in itself builds a case for, higher personal mobility, higher usage of road transport. So these trends being there, now coming onto the industrial side. Now we keep reading about, and I just spoke about how
Mhm.
India is a very attractive destination for foreign capital. Um, Big companies want to set shop in India, right? We keep reading about it on various companies targeting India to set up their factories,
Mhm.
manufacturing units. All of this is, from two perspectives. One is that they are eyeing India as one of the biggest consumption markets.
Mhm.
And on the other side, India presents uh, in itself as one of the most efficient, easily available manufacturing
Mhm.
hubs, right? Because the factors of production, be it land, labor, skilled sort of labor force that are available, ease of doing business is all there in India, right? But for all of this to come true, and of course, we cannot forget that there is a definite government focus,
Mhm.
policy enablement here also that's playing a role. But all of this, if it has to work out, then transport and logistics has to become efficient in India, because be it raw materials or finished goods, if
Mhm.
anything has to move from one place to another, you see there is a role of transport and logistics. So we really
Exactly.
cannot do without this.
Correct. No, it's got a wide investing universe, right? We spoke about commercial vehicles, automobiles, auto components, then logistic providers, e-commerce, then ports, airlines, to name a few, right? Each one
Absolutely.
of these industries have their robust growth potential. So, what are the different industries again? What are the within that big theme? Which are the other industries that fall into? Can you just give us a complete wide perspective to it?
Absolutely. So, like you rightly mentioned, transport and
Mm.
logistics is a pretty diversified theme that covers about 20 basic industries. And as per our data, there are more than 200 listed companies which forms a
Mm.
part of the relevant universe. So it's pretty
Okay.
diverse. Now, to name a few other than the direct sort of segments or the industries that you just mentioned, there are tire and rubber products,
Mm.
abrasives and bearings, casting and forging companies, shipping and port services, airport and related services, tour and travel companies, road
Mm.
assets,
Mm.
e-commerce delivery services,
Mm.
auto and commercial vehicle dealers and
Mm.
financiers that also come in this space.
Mm.
So it is a pretty widespread sort of space with a lot of like I mentioned, about 20 basic industries that get covered here.
Mm. Okay. So, you said there is going to be a huge demand, right? Now, what what are the gap between the demand and supply drivers, and how much of growth that you are expecting from these sectors in next 5 to 10 years?
Sure. So, transport and logistics, like I said, can be considered as one of the key economic growth
Mhm.
engines because it diversifies itself across automobiles, auto ancillaries, OEMs, airports,
Mhm.
ports, shipping, logistics. So, the opportunities are, of course, myriad. But
Mhm.
the larger investment rationale, like I said, it revolves around low penetration, rising affordability,
Mhm.
aspiration, orientation towards premiumization, and manufacturing and export opportunities that are there. Now,
Mhm.
auto industry volume, is likely we expect it to grow at a 8% CAGR over the next
Mhm.
decade. And
Mm.
within that, when we look at growth opportunities, we expect higher growth to come from the passenger vehicle segment,
Mm.
followed by two-wheelers, while we feel that commercial vehicles is expected to record relatively lower growth due to cyclicality, cyclical
Mm.
element that is a part of it. And like I mentioned to you earlier, in terms of the growth opportunities, because the income growth, the rate at which income is expected to grow, is more than double, possibly at the rate at which the selling prices of vehicles are growing. And that in itself, presents a great opportunity over the next decade, that the per capita GDP can grow at a rate of 11 to 12%, while the growth in automobile selling price is at about 5 to 6% sort of a number. And alongside that, one thing that is being seen is that in the same vehicles, what we call is
Mhm.
like the kit value, basically the sum of
Mm.
parts, the value proposition that is
Mm.
available within a vehicle is coming in at a 5 to 6% sort of inflation rate in terms of the price of the vehicle. So this is taking the trend towards premiumization. As you see, the consumption pattern of
Mhm.
individuals who are buying automobiles, they are preferring vehicles with more premium features, right? Like,
Mm.
possibly LED lighting, sunroof being available, alloy
Mm.
wheels being a part of it. Uh,
Mhm. Mm.
Very commonsensical example that I can give you, and if we look around, how many people do we really see buying, say, a Wagoner or a Santro, or those
Mm.
really the entry segment vehicles? And Neeraj, I mean, this you would realize, and people like us would, if we just go back 15 years back, and when we started earning, what would be our first vehicle, right?
Mine was Wagoner.
Right? Today, nobody will look at that vehicle. They start with
Yes.
a sedan, an SUV, right? That's the big change in consumption pattern. And that's where, I make the point around affordability, aspiration, and premiumization.
Mm.
So
Okay.
these are definitely the growth drivers in this space.
Wonderful. Government is again investing a huge amount. You see the rail and road infrastructure projects. Now going ahead, do you think one of the beneficiaries of those investment is going to be, obviously it's road and transport sector, right? Logistics sector. Government. Now again, your NFO has come. Yeah, it's already there from 7th of October and will continue till 10th of October, 10th of November, right?
27th of
So
October.
27th of October, and it's going to
Yes.
continue till 10th of
10th
November.
of November.
So, what do you
Yes.
think? Why, at this point of time, can you tell us more about what are the pros and cons of this NFO, and why people should be investing in your NFO? If you can tell us more about it.
Absolutely. So I think during our discussion, we have
Yeah.
covered, automobiles as a segment, and the investment rationale around,
Mhm.
automobile as a segment in detail. Now, there are basically the investment rationale, or the investment thesis for transport and logistics as a sector revolves around about six pillars, three of which
Mm.
I have already spoken about, which is linked to automobile, which is low penetration, rising affordability, premiumization. The fourth trend, and the big
Mm.
trend, is the trend of conversion from ICE to EV, right? Which
Ah,
is basically adoption of electric vehicles from, and
correct.
we all know why is this trend basically catching steam, right?
Mm.
Because there is definitely a regulation push. There is,
Mm.
the pollution related issues that we have, and
Mm.
India has its own commitment to reduce carbon emissions, right? The third most important thing is finding an alternate source of energy, right? And like I
Mm.
said, India is a highly dependent and an oil importing economy. And with
Mm.
the way crude prices, behave, to basically bring self-reliance on this front with increasing penetration and higher demand and more usage of vehicle. EVs is just the natural, sort of way to go for, right? So that is one of the other trends which is, working in favor of this segment. And how
mm,
is that working? And that's related to my next trend, which is auto ancillary, and
mm,
which has been the sunrise sector over
mm,
uh, the last decade per se, and it continues to see multiple
mm.
growth opportunities. uh, at this juncture, maybe if I could request that I can have some slides come in. Yeah. So when we talk about auto ancillary as a space, just a moment, please. Can I just move the slides?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we talk about auto ancillary as a space, there are, three opportunities or three trends that we see that are playing out there in a significant way. So, yes, please, Neeraj.
Yeah. Is the slide has been changed? I
No,
could
it
see the.
hasn't actually.
Yeah. Riti, if you can, change the slide. Can you do it yourself? You can. Um,
Just a second. Actually, I'm not able to move to the next slide.
okay.
Is it changing now?
Oh, yeah. It's changing now. It's changing now.
Okay,
Right.
okay. I think that's fine. So let me take you through. So I was talking about auto ancillaries. So let me take you there. So the three key trends that are playing out in the auto ancillary space is, one is product diversification. So
Mm-hmm.
auto ancillary typically, has multiple growth drivers.
Mm,
One, from the standpoint of, like I said, ICE to EV as a trend that is there. So there is a thrust towards, manufacturing, local manufacturing of components which are suitable for electronic vehicles. There are export
mm,
opportunities also that are coming up there. Other than that, auto ancillary as a space has in itself, it has carved out its own small place over the last few
mm,
years where, export opportunity is concerned. So there are various companies involved in this space which have, significant, a meaningful bit of their order book, or revenue stream coming from exports. So that's a trend which we see to amplify going forward, as trends like China plus one, Europe plus one,
mhm,
which means that
mm,
basically, companies abroad are looking for alternate partners where, and supply chain disruptions are happening, and they're looking for alternate partners from moving out of China or moving out of Europe. So India stands to benefit there. The other thing is that these auto ancillary companies are diversifying their product lines, right?
mhm,
Ones that had been manufacturing, one line of product are actually entering into JVs to manufacture different lines of product, so that their revenue stream can become more sustainable, leading to better profitability. So yes, this is another segment which is expected to really work
mm.
very well for the transport and logistics sector. Sorry, Neeraj, was there a second question that I sort of missed answering?
No, no, it's perfectly fine. You can go to the next slide.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you change the slide?
Yes. So in
Okay.
terms of, the opportunities that we spoke about, right? So the other now, when we move out from auto and auto ancillaries as a space, and now we move into so as we spoke about, the transportation is not just about automobiles. It covers road, rail, airlines, all as basically pockets of opportunity. Now,
Mm-hmm.
looking at the aviation data, now
Mm,
the story is similar as what we had in automobiles. The
mm,
penetration levels are extremely low. If you look
mm,
at India's the passengers to population sort of number for
mm,
aviation, it's just about 12%, right? That is the small number of people which are using airlines. In terms
mm,
of number of airports, India has only 148 airports, and our projections say that by 2025 itself, the number would go
mm,
up to 2020. So to 220, I'm sorry.
mm,
So from that standpoint, we see that the runway for growth in this segment is very, very high. Now,
mm,
as compared to that, now let me give you again a common example. If you think of the number of people utilizing railways and three AC per se or two AC per se, the services of that, and you think about and you ask any of these
mm,
people on given a choice, would they want to sort of migrate to airlines? I think
mm,
most of them would say yes. It's only about the interconnectivity being available,
mm,
airports being available in the smaller towns of India, flights
mm,
being available, and of course then there is an opportunity for low cost airlines also to come in to connect the length and breadth of India. So that's how the story of aviation is playing out. Within that, of course, right now it's more of a duopoly sort of a structure. But if you
mm,
ask me, this currently, with this structuring coming in, it leads to better bargaining power in a
mm,
rather difficult sort of an industry to function, where
mm,
it leads to better bargaining power for supply chain, aircraft, fleet, pilots, crew, etc.
mm,
Now, the next and the final piece that we have in our theme is logistics. Now,
mm,
logistics is definitely a big piece that has to work out for India, where there is significant policy focus also, and um, it is right now a capex story, right?
mm,
I'm sorry. There's a logistics policy announcement that the government has come up with. As you see here, there was a couple of years back, Gati Shakti was announced, which was basically 7 engines of progress towards
mm,
road, railways, airports, port, waterways, logistic infrastructure, to cover all of it. Now, logistics is basically a sum of parts of three segments. It is
mm,
B2B, which covers ports, rail infra, supply chain. Then there's global trade and global freight services. And then,
mhm,
of course, B2C, what we know as e-commerce. So these are the three, major part of logistics. Now, I'll share some, very interesting data with you. Just let me first show you
mm,
why logistics is so important. And that's because, like the penetration levels where
mm,
transportation is concerned is very low, in logistics, the efficiency level is very low. Now,
mm,
this is a comparison on various counts on the logistics front with certain developed nations. Now, if you compare it on counts like size of warehouse or the size of truck
mm,
or the average distance traveled by truck, any of
mm,
these counts, you see
mm,
that India ranks nowhere near countries like US and China, right? And of course, the spend of India, per capita logistics spend is also very, very low as compared to
mm,
uh, the other countries. And
mm,
hence, this is how it shows that it's inefficient, and hence there are a lot of opportunities that lie ahead.
mm,
Now, what is being done in this space? And
mm,
what is it that we are seeing? Now,
mm,
just look at rail infrastructure and how you have dedicated freight corridors. So basically, this is about the cargo trains. which basically, carry cargo across the rail route. Now, there has been this rollout of DFC, Dedicated
mm,
Freight Corridor, which is currently happened on the Western Belt. This connects Mundra Port uh, in Gujarat to Dadri,
mm,
basically, in Northeast, sorry, in UP.
mm,
Now, before DFC was there, the speed at which trains were
mm,
running, you know, was at 28 kilometers per hour. Post DFC, the
mm,
speed has gone up to 75 kilometers per hour.
mm,
So you look at the significant improvement, it's more than doubled, right?
mm,
And the time taken to cover this route was 72 hours before
mm,
DFC was rolled out. And it is
mm,
actually flipped, it's reduced to
mm,
one third, which is
mm.
27 kilometers, 27 hours now.
Ours.
And
Mm,
by the way, this is one of the busiest and most heavily used routes. As we
mm,
speak, the eastern, corridor is also being commissioned. It's completed and it's just about being commissioned. And this is what we call the sort of improvement and efficiency that logistics, needs to bring in India.
mhm,
Now, let me take you through another data. This is port infrastructure, right?
mm,
And as we know, our southern belt is basically surrounded with water. And
mm,
as you see on my slide, both on the west and on the eastern side, it's dotted with major and minor ports. Well,
mm,
if you compare the number of ports in the last 20 years back and now, the numbers have definitely gone up. But
mm,
more importantly, the volume of cargo that is handled on these ports, if you
mm,
see, that has also gone up significantly.
mm,
And interestingly, the minor ports, the amount of cargo that the minor ports handle has also seen a significant jump.
mm,
Plus, how has that been happening? That's been happening because of more privatization, higher
mm,
mechanization, better use, better port services that are being, utilized. And this, when it, adds up together with an efficient road transport, and,
mm,
well placed and well built warehouses, godowns, cold storages, that is what will meaningfully contribute towards India becoming, a significant
mm,
manufacturing hub, and
mm,
also one of, the bigger exporting countries basically. So
mm,
so India has to rank, amongst the top few countries where exports is concerned. So logistics has to play a major role there.
mm,
So uh, this is how logistics plays a role. Now let's come to e-commerce. And then again, like I said, a very interesting data. Now
mm,
this data is from 2021 and we actually picked it up from the DRHP of delivery.
mm,
Now, in 2021, India was handling 2.7 billion parcels, and it was 85 parcels per second, 7.3 million parcels per day, and almost 2 parcels per person. But you know what is interesting? This is the number that China was doing in 2010, a decade back.
mm,
And as we speak, in the same year,
mm.
2021, China has been handling 83 billion parcels, right? So in
Wow.
10 years,
Mm,
China saw a humongous 40% CAGR growth.
mm,
And we expect that even if India has to do half of that, a much lower number of 21% CAGR
mm.
in shipment volume, even then, so, it's around our imagination on how large the opportunity size is.
Absolutely.
So, net, just to summarize the multiple levers of growth that this segment has, of course, higher per capita income is going to boost consumption in the auto sector.
Mm,
Premiumization and regulatory requirement will, lead to increase in average selling price. And here I allude to the EV as a segment, which is picking up. Uh, Higher domestic manufacturing and exports are going to be the cornerstone for auto ancillary segment to grow. And when we talk of this theme particularly, this segment is very important because, this basically where investment opportunities are also concerned, this would be sort of, occupying a lion's share in terms of investment opportunities as well. And of course, development of ports, DFC, like I mentioned, road infrastructure and airlines will boost the logistics sector. So that is net the thesis around this fund.
Wonderful. I think that's a very, very convincing way of the way you have presented. Of course, we can understand how big is the opportunity. But as an investor, कभी कभी मेरा मन में ये भी सोच आता है कि आपने कह दिया कि अभी ट्रांसपोर्टेशन, commercial vehicles, and we have got battery, electric EVs, and all different ports and different stocks are there. So as an individual investor, I can go and buy those stocks as well, right? Then why your fund? Why I should invest in your transportation and logistic fund instead of buying those stocks myself personally?
Sure. And for that, I'll take you to one slide from my PPT to
Okay.
build the investment case from this standpoint. So, firstly, like I said, that this is a pretty diversified theme, right? So it covers 20 basic industries and about 200 companies. So which means it's a fairly long list of companies, diversified. So tracking and, sort of monitoring companies on an individual level, I think would be, a fairly tedious task. Now, talking about the investment opportunity, and let's see how this index has, or this segment has been doing per se. First of all, this segment has a, lower correlation with the broader indices, be it Nifty 50 or Nifty 500. Just to give a number reference, the presence of this segment of these set of sectors in these broader indices is just about 5 to 8%. So clearly it's underrepresented, right? It occupies only 5 to 8% weightage in the broader indices. While if you look at the Nifty transport and logistics sector's performance, it has, outperformed these broader indices over a longer period by almost 300 basis points. 3% is the outperformance. So definitely this has the potential and has generated alpha for investors. So that in itself builds a strong case for, a fund like this, a platform like this for investors to participate in this combination of, cyclical as well as diversified segment, because thematic or sector funds are commonly perceived as, being cyclical in nature. But this, by virtue of the diversity that it has and the number of, sort of industries that it touches, let me even show you that. So it's sort of, it makes a great case to utilize a fund as a platform to participate in this.
इनफैक्ट मेधा, और बहुत सारे व्यूअर्स हैं, उन लोग रिक्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं कि अगर हिंदी में भी बात करें तो बढ़िया है.
जरूर जरूर. सो जस्ट टू कंटिन्यू, जैसा मैं कह रही थी, सबसे पहले इस लिस्टेड यूनिवर्स में, और ये सवाल नीरज जी आपने मुझे थोड़ा पहले भी पूछा था कि कौन कौन से इंडस्ट्रीज हैं जो इसका पार्ट बनते हैं. तो ऑफ कोर्स ऑटो तो है ही, पर ऑटो कंपोनेंट्स है, लॉजिस्टिक सोल्यूशन प्रोवाइडर है, कास्टिंग फोर्जिंग कंपनी है, टायर एंड रबर प्रोडक्ट्स हैं, रोड एसेट्स हैं, पैसेंजर कार्स, यूटिलिटी व्हीकल, शिपिंग, टूर सर्विसेज, एयरपोर्ट रिलेटेड सर्विसेज, डीलर्स जो आते हैं, फाइनेंसिंग कंपनीज इन दिस स्पेस आते हैं, ऑल ऑफ दिस कम हियर. दूसरी जो जरूरी चीज है वो ये है कि बेसिकली ये जो बेंचमार्क है वो लार्ज कैप एंड मिड कैप का बेसिकली एक बहुत ही अच्छा बैलेंस्ड कॉम्बिनेशन है. और अगर आप लार्जर यूनिवर्स में भी देखेंगे तो बेसिकली
हम्म
मेरा कहने का मतलब है कि लार्ज कैप सो कॉमनली परसीव्ड होता है, और ये सवाल मुझे कई बार आता है कि ये तो मिड एंड स्मॉल कैप प्ले होने वाला है, बट मैं
हम्म
आपको यहाँ ये दिखाना चाहती हूँ कि एक्चुअली बहुत सारे लार्ज कैप कंपनीज भी हैं, एंड
हम्म
बेंचमार्क के अंदर, और अगर फंड ने उसके यूजुअली दैट हम म्यूचुअल फंड्स में देखते हैं, और जिस वजह से रिस्क भी कैलिब्रेट हो जाता है,
हम्म
बेंचमार्क के इर्द गिर्द पोर्टफोलियो बनता है, तो ये लार्ज एंड मिड कैप सॉर्ट ऑफ पोर्टफोलियो बनेगा विद मार्जिनल
हम्म
अमाउंट इन स्मॉल कैप, राइट?
ओके हम्म
एंड ओवरऑल कंपोनेंट वाइज ब्रेकअप के हिसाब से बेंचमार्क हैज अबाउट 57% इन ऑटोमोबाइल्स,
हम्म
25% in auto ancillaries, and about 18% in logistics and others. So this is
करेक्ट.
how it is broken up.
So if somebody invests through a mutual fund in this particular sector, तो उनको एकदम पूरा वेल डाइवर्सिफाइड एक कंप्लीटली डाइवर्सिफाइड एक पोर्टफोलियो मिलते हैं. हालांकि
जी.
व्हेन मैं एक स्टॉक इंडिविजुअल स्टॉक खरीदता हूँ, इट बिकम्स ओनली वन और टू स्टॉक्स, और मैक्सिमम कितने स्टॉक खरीदेंगे, 4-5 ही स्टॉक्स खरीदेंगे, है ना? सो दैट इज वन.
जी.
अच्छा, अगर रिस्क का बात करें, एक तो है
हम्म.
रिस्क, व्हाट आर द रिस्क फैक्टर्स एसोसिएटेड विद दिस पर्टिकुलर थीम, नंबर वन. नंबर टू, एक इंडिविजुअल होने का नाते मुझे कितने परसेंटेज ऑफ माय पोर्टफोलियो आई शुड इन्वेस्ट इन दिस पर्टिकुलर थीम.
श्योर. सो जहाँ तक रिस्क की बात है, एंड इस थीम के
हम्म
लिए रिस्क की बात है, ऑफ कोर्स जैसा हमने शुरुआत में कहा कि डिस्क्रिशनरी आइटम है, तो अगर थिंग्स लाइक ग्लोबल स्लो डाउन होता है,
हम्म
रिसेशनरी कंसर्न होता है, इवन डोमेस्टिक स्लो डाउन होता है, तो
हम्म
इसके डिमांड में सम बिट ऑफ स्लो डाउन दिखने का अंदेशा रहता है.
हम्म
However, looking at the structural element also that is there,
हम्म
फिलहाल हमारा व्यू ये है कि एक्सपोर्ट अपॉर्चुनिटी के तौर पे, एंड
हम्म
इवन लुकिंग एट द ग्लोबल सिनेरियो, एक्सपोर्ट
हम्म
अपॉर्चुनिटी के तौर पे वी डू नॉट सी दैट एमिनेटिंग इन अ मेजर वे.
हम्म
इसके रीजन ये भी है कि ऑफ कोर्स रिसेशनरी रिस्क दिख रहे हैं, बट प्रोनाउंस्ड
हम्म
रिसेशन के का स्कोप मीनिंगफुली नहीं
हम्म
दिख रहा है. सो वी डू
हम्म
नॉट सी दैट प्लेइंग आउट सिग्निफिकेंटली.
हम्म
हालांकि ऑन द अदर साइड डोमेस्टिक स्टैंड पॉइंट में थोड़ी सिक्लिकलिटी नजर आ रही है,
हम्म
एंड स्पेशली ऑटो एंड फोर व्हीलर एज अ सेगमेंट के लिए. बट
हम्म
क्योंकि ये थीम सिर्फ ऑटो पे सीमित नहीं है, ट्रांसपोर्ट एंड लॉजिस्टिक्स है, तो जैसा मैंने शुरुआत से मैं कह रही हूँ कि ऑटो के अलावा अपने पास ऑटो एंसिलरीज, ओईएम्स, लॉजिस्टिक्स एंड डिफरेंट अदर रिलेटेड चीजें भी हैं. सो
हम्म
वी कैन प्ले आउट दिस सिक्लिकलिटी इन आवर फेवर, जहाँ पे हम अकॉर्डिंगली वैल्यूएशन बेसिस पे ऑटो पे मार्जिनल एक्सपोजर या बैलेंस्ड एक्सपोजर यूटिलाइज करके, जहाँ पे
हम्म
हमें बेटर लो लाइंग अपॉर्चुनिटीज मिलती हैं, हम उससे पोर्टफोलियो बिल्ड कर सकते हैं. और तीसरी
करेक्ट.
और बहुत जो जरूरी चीज है कि
हम्म
valuations had been valuations had been little, they have been growing on the growing side, but at the same time, the recent market corrections have also provided a good opportunity, right, for building a
हम्म
portfolio like this. So, जैसे हम over the last 1 month, markets have corrected. So, I think that valuation is also getting some breather. So, and typically, cycle for this segment, auto,
हम्म
it is seen that it is a 2 to 3 years well performing cycle, and then sort of 1.5 to 2 years of lull, and then again a bull cycle that sets in. तो
हम्म
हम अगर साइकिल के डाउन टर्न पे या एक नए साइकिल के शुरुआत पे बेसिकली
हम्म
इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, इन्वेस्टर्स इस फंड में आते हैं,
हम्म
एंड वैसे ही हम अपने सारे इन्वेस्टर्स को ऐसे फंड में 3 से 5 साल का इन्वेस्टमेंट होराइजन सजेस्ट करते हैं.
हम्म
तो अगर 3 साल का हमारे पास विजिबिलिटी है, तो एक साइकिल के जब आप बॉटमिंग में आते हो, तो नेक्स्ट 3 years में फॉर दैट टू प्ले आउट इज अ गुड अपॉर्चुनिटी, राइट?
करेक्ट. हम्म
एंड in the end, रही जो आपके लास्ट क्वेश्चन की बात कि if an investor has to participate in a fund like this, what should be
हम्म
the allocation? So typically जो themes और sectors वाले जो funds होते हैं, वो आपके equity allocation का डिपेंडिंग ऑन for 20 से 25% से ज़्यादा weight, generally
Right.
that is a good weight to carry in. So
Hmm.
उसमें आप combination of 2-3 good themes carry कर सकते
Hmm.
हैं जो आपको नेक्स्ट 3 से 5 साल के तौर पे अच्छा लग रहा है और जिसमें
Hmm.
अपॉर्चुनिटी अच्छी दिख रही है. आई थिंक दैट शुड बी अ गुड वे टू लुक एट इट. And of course,
Wonderful.
you can do SIP
Hmm.
also in a fund like
Hmm.
this.
Hmm.
That is also an option.
Okay. SIP also is a good option. I think it's
Yes.
nice talking to you, Medhaji. Thank you so much. And आपने बहुत सारा एक fantastic in-depth एक perspective दिया. And you compared between China, America, कि how 10 years back the sector was and how it is now. And I think it's pretty insightful. Now I think our viewers are pretty convinced that ये जो theme है that's is going to play out very strongly in the coming years. I think that conviction that we have got from your presentation. It's lovely talking to you, and at the same time, I would like to thank all our viewers as well. So thank you everyone. Thank you, Medhaji. Thank you,
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you viewers for being on this session. Thank you so much.
thank you.